Hi, I'm Kristy Ella, and before we get into today's story, I want you to think about something. Have you ever been so busy waiting for your real life to begin that you almost missed the one quietly happening right in front of you? Today's story comes from a woman named Carly, 53 years old, a house to herself, and a very unexpected roommate. Here's Carly.
I turned 53 the autumn my whole life changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. It happened the way most quiet things do, gradually and then completely. My marriage had ended 2 years before, politely and without much fanfare, the way long things sometimes do when both people have simply grown in different directions. My daughter was grown and living her own full life in Vancouver. My sister was in Portugal. My closest friend had followed a man to Calgary. And I was in the house on Maple Lane, which had been ours and was now mine, learning what it felt like to cook for one. The house was lovely. I want to be clear about that. Original hardwood floors, reading chair by the front window, a kitchen that caught the most beautiful amber light at 5:30 in the evening. I kept it nicely. Throw pillows plumped, dish towel folded in thirds, 3 potted plants watered every Friday with a small blue pitcher I'd bought on. Clearance and quietly adored. I was not unhappy. I was just waiting. For what I couldn't quite say. Something bigger. Something worthy of my full attention. And then James moved in. I noticed him first on a Thursday evening. A small brown mouse, no bigger than a lemon, with enormous round ears and a tail that seemed slightly too long for the rest of him, like he hadn't quite finished growing into it. He was helping himself, with great focus, to a crumb of the scone I'd left on the counter before bed. I shrieked. He froze. We stared at each other for one long, ridiculous moment, and then he tucked that crumb under his chin and disappeared behind the refrigerator with the composure of someone who had done absolutely nothing wrong. I named him James that same night, though I couldn't tell you exactly why. He just looked like a James. Something about the way he carried himself, unhurried, deliberate, quietly certain of his place in the world. Like a man who owned a good coat and took the long way home on purpose. I told myself I would deal with it, buy a trap, call someone, handle it. But the next morning I found myself setting my coffee down very quietly, just in case. And the morning after that I left a small corner of toast on the edge of the counter. Not for him, I told myself. Just nearby. James came out at dusk, mostly. He had a particular route along the baseboard, up behind the stove, across the counter to the window ledge, where he would sit for a moment in that 5:30 light as if reviewing his day. I started reviewing my day at the same time. I began to notice things. The sound the house made when the wind came from the east, the way the lavender outside the back door smelled after rain, the particular comfort of a second cup of peppermint tea when you had nowhere to be. I started talking to him. Just quietly. I noticed the hydrangeas came up on the wrong side of the walk again. I decided to let them be. I think I'm going to repaint the hall. I've been thinking about it for 2 years. Maybe this is the year. My daughter called. She sounds happy, genuinely, thoroughly happy. That used to make me feel left behind. Today it just made me glad. James would pause and look at me with his small bright eyes, and I felt, for the first time in quite a while, like someone worth listening to. The moment that changed things happened on a Sunday in April. I was watching James make his way across the counter. He'd spotted something behind the bread box and was committed to reaching it, when he misjudged. A step and slipped, tumbling off the edge. I was across the kitchen before I'd thought about moving. He was fine. Sitting on the floor looking mildly offended, the crumb still tucked under his chin. But I was kneeling on the kitchen tiles with my heart going, and I realised, with a clarity I hadn't expected, that I cared. That I had been caring for weeks without naming it, that the house felt different now. Not because anything had changed, but because there was someone in it with me. Someone small and self-possessed, going about his days with an ease that asked nothing of the world except a crumb here and a patch of good light there. I sat down on the floor. James came. I kept his distance, near enough. "You're not waiting for anything, are you?" I said. He cleaned his whiskers. "You're just here." I looked around my kitchen, really looked. At the amber light, the 3 plants on the sill, the blue pitcher, the dish towel folded in thirds. At all the quiet evidence of a life I'd been tending carefully without quite letting myself love. And something in my chest, something held at a careful distance for 2 years, and then some came softly loose. I painted the hall that weekend. Warm sage green. The whole house felt like it exhaled. I called my sister and stayed on the phone for an hour and a half. Not reporting in, just talking. I bought 2 more pots, lavender and rosemary, and set them in the kitchen window where the evening light could reach them. And every night at dusk, I turned my reading chair away from the street and toward the room, and waited for James to begin his rounds. He always came. The house on Maple Lane was the same house. Same floors, same creak in the 3rd board, same view. But I had stopped waiting for something bigger to arrive before I allowed myself to be fully present in it. I had learned from a small brown mouse, with his too long tail and his unhurried certainty, that a life doesn't begin when circumstances align. It begins the moment you decide to be in it. And I never did buy that trap. How could I?
There's something about Carly's story that stays with me. She didn't need a grand gesture. She needed a mouse named James, and a Tuesday at 5:30 to remind her that her life, the one right in front of her, was already worth showing up for. Is it possible that yours is too? What small thing has been quietly showing up in your world lately? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Until next time, settle in and stay a while. Grab a cup of tea and listen to the other stories of women just like Carly. James and the House on Maple Lane, a Kristy Ella story. Love, life, and lessons with a fictional twist.